All right, everybody, this is the Jerry Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how we do it. I'm so excited because we have the famous Joshua Smith with us today with his own amazing podcast, GSD Mode, and he's going to tell us how he did it. So Joshua, give us your story. How long have you been in the business? I know you've got a huge team now on your own podcast. Give us kind of the overview of how you've done that and how you've gotten where you are now.
It really started when I won the NAR's 30 under 30, award, like back, I don't know, 2012 or whatever. Started getting a lot of national publicity, right, to speak a ton, and so then that led to a lot of people reaching out. Hey, do you offer coaching? And I just was busy as I was, and people that, I'll offer coaching, but my time is very valuable. And I've got to put a dollar amount to my time, and that's more than most people can afford, right?
Right.
Like when I calculate my
especially
time
if you're
right
new
now.
in the business. So wait, but I still want to get down to that answer about teams and when you were growing your business.
Okay. So anyway, back to that, right? So the biggest mistake that not just real estate agents, but anybody, any entrepreneur that's hiring makes is they don't understand that the people aren't the most important part of your company, right? The most important part of your company is your systems and processes, because people, no matter how great they are, can never show you their greatness if they don't have proven successful processes and systems to follow. So a process is just how you do what you do to create success. So maybe I get a call right now from a lead, a seller lead. My process would be, okay, here's the questions I'm going to ask. Here's how I'm going to set the appointment. Here's how I'm going to prepare for the appointment. Here's how I show up to the appointment, how I conduct the appointment, how I get the signed listing agreement. The system is the checklist and manual around that, right? So you've got to, once you've created a proven model that's created success for you, which if you're ready to hire somebody, that means that you've created a successful process for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But the only way that will be able to be duplicated and taught to others is to create systems and processes around that. So I look at everything. Every business is systems, processes, and numbers, right? So I've got to have everything's got to have a process.
Processes, and numbers. Yep.
Yep. So your process is dialed in. Systems built around the processes to go out there and ensure, because systems will ensure the processes happen over and over and over. Things aren't missed. They're duplicatable and scalable. And from there, I'm a total numbers guy, right? The path is in the math. Every successful entrepreneur knows their numbers intimately. Real estate agents typically have this huge resistance to numbers and spreadsheets. But I always preach to my teammates. I'm like, dude, you are not serious about your business if you're not tracking your numbers, right? You can tell me all day and you can cry to me all damn day about how much your family matters to you and how you want to create all the success. But if you're not doing your daily trackers, you're absolutely 100% full of shit, right? It's just the reality of it, right? So I want to know, and I know this per every single lead source, I know exactly how many leads, how many reach outs, how many conversations, how many appointments set, how many conductions, equates to how many clients, to how many closings. I know the ROI in those percentages. We have those down to a science, right? So then from there, though, then people matter, right? So I don't want to say people are important. People are massively, massively important. But if you don't have those things dialed in, you're just going to fail your people. When people come to me, when entrepreneurs or real estate agents come to me and they say, oh, my biggest challenge is finding great people. Right away, I know their systems and processes absolutely suck, right? There's no shortage of great people. There's a huge shortage of great leaders, right?
Yeah.
There's just a ton of just shitty leaders. So, so you've got to have that dialed in. So like contract to close, we've got our 17-point contract to close process. Everybody follows the same process. I just hired a new TC on Tuesday, transaction coordinator. So 2 days ago, right? And within less than a week, she'll be fully trained. She knows what to do. She has a system to follow. She has reference guides. She doesn't need to eat up a bunch of my time. We allow her to be resourceful, and we give her the ability to find the information that she needs when she needs it, and to do a great job and duplicate the same job that everybody else does inside the organization. So then from there, then it comes to people. And then with the great thing about systems and processes, you can inspect what you expect at that point. Right. So I know instantaneously if somebody's doing the work, right? I know what people's capacities are. I know what
now
this
you
looks
say
like.
that because you're in your systems and processes, they're tracking I guess you've got the system and their process is to check off what they do when, or how do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know exactly based now, okay, people can lie about,
Right.
let's say I bring on a new buyer's agent and they're
Uh,
lying about their numbers. They can only lie for so long, right?
yeah.
And it's like Jim Rohn said, he's like the great thing about tracking the numbers is the boxes are small. There's no room for an excuse inside the box,
I
right? It's
like
either you
that. Yeah.
work, it didn't work. And the other thing about being a leader is it's not just all about, oh well, they're not hitting their numbers so they're gone. It allows me to identify where there could be potential choke points. Like
Uh,
maybe, for example, their appointment set to appointment conduction ratio is low. Well, then I know at that point maybe they're not selling the value of the appointment enough, and they have a high cancellation or no-show ratio. So now I know how to
mhm.
coach them better. Or if they're going on their listing presentations and let's say they're only converting 60% when they should be, 75 to 80% depending on how seasoned they are. Then I know from there, okay, how that's more practice and role playing and things that I need to coach and work with them on. Um, so then from there, once all that's dialed in, the biggest mistake I've made as a leader after that is, you kind of go into this expectation that everybody's going to be like you and driven like you. And,
Yeah.
and, and, and the reality is you don't want you inside your organization, because if they're you, they're going to become your competition, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so from there, then I didn't know how to effectively lead people. I mean, I provided all the systems, I provided all the process, I provided all the training, but I didn't know necessarily how to inspire people to go out there and take more action. And I kind of started off as a very tyrant leader, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, you don't
that was
understand because you've got this incredible drive that it's natural for you to work 80 hours a week, and you don't understand. How can you understand why nobody else would?
Yeah, I'm just like what do you mean
Just
you're
do
not getting the
it.
call?
Yeah.
Picking up the calls. You tell me that your wife and your kids are the most important thing in the world to you. You're not willing to be rejected by the stranger. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, what
That's a
do
good
the work,
one.
right?
Yeah.
And that's but that's not the way that you can lead people. So everybody's probably heard the saying of I can lead the horse to water, but I can't make them drink. So then leaders think your job is to lead people to water, which is false, right? Your job as a leader is to make the horse thirsty. Because once they're thirsty, then they'll be begging you to lead them to the water, and then they'll drink. Right? So how do you make somebody thirsty? You
Yeah.
make somebody thirsty by becoming the light, right? You got to be the example. Leadership happens within. Where I was trying to make leadership an external process, not an internal process. So I just found that I just had to go deeper on working on myself, creating more success for myself, being the light, being the example, which then would create a culture and environment where then
Awesome.
I'd have a bunch of people that in my company that would become thirsty, then beg for the path, and then people outside of my company, right? I mean, same thing that see what we're doing, see what I'm doing.
Well, I think
And
too on the people component is when if that's who you are, that's what you attract. You attract what you are. So the more, I mean, of
yeah.
course, there's going to be a little bit of diversity from that or whatever, but for the most part, kind of, you create a culture and you create the better person you are and the better practice you have. You create that culture, you're going to attract more and more of those things versus the opposite. But I guess give us an example of kind of some experiences you had in having your team and kind of going through that. How did you figure that out? Because you literally, it's like you just kind of flipped it. Like you're like, I thought I had to make people do this and take them to water and they won't drink it. And was there a story that happened, or how did you figure that out?
It's I mean, all this stuff sounds so cool and fun, right?
Yeah.
But it's a long process, right? It's been, I mean, people look at me now and they're like, oh, dude, you created so much success at 35 years old, by the time you're
Yeah.
35, whatever, and all this is great. I'm like, yeah, but in the 12 years, I think I've worked as much or many hours than most people do in their whole entire lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of it is, so one of my mentors, Darren Hardy, who I love to death and I'm a huge fan of, he talks about like the fly. You see this fly trying to get out of the window and it keeps just banging its head against the window.
Right.
Where if it would just take a step back and then analyze everything, it may realize, hey, if I slide over 7 feet to the left, there's a slider door that's open and I can get out. And I was the fly, right? Just beat my head. So the hard part when you're inside your own business is you're in it, right? It's like you're the quarterback on the field. You're trying to analyze all the
You
players,
can't see
and then boom,
yourself.
you get blindsided by the
Yeah.
linebacker. So you need that person in the skybox. So, I realized about 2 years into this that, I needed a coach. I never really had a coach in my previous industry because it's the health club industry. And I always, I guess I had the owners and mentors inside that space to that were my mentors and that could kind of be those eyeballs on me. But I never actually at that point went out there and paid for a coach. And so 2 years into it, I realized the power of having a coach, having somebody that's not emotionally attached to my business. That's the person in the skybox that can see the blind spots I can't see. And I've yet to go any period of time without a coach in the last 10 years. I mean, right now I have 4 coaches, right? So,
Wow.
So that was, I wished I could say that I was intelligent enough to figure all this stuff out on my own, but the reality
That's
is,
great advice. So how do you find the time for 4 coaches?
you make the time, right? So there's no such thing as a time shortage. There's no such thing as time management, right? There's 168 hours in a week. So let's say I work 80 of those. Let's say I go to the gym an hour a day, so that's 5 hours a week. And then let's say I sleep 6 hours a night, right? So 42 hours a week. I mean, that leaves me still with, over 40 hours left in my week, right?
There's plenty of time. Yeah.
Yeah. People, there's plenty of time. You just got to make the time and you got to prioritize things and figure out what's important. And then everything is a book that I highly recommend everybody read is called Essentialism. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And he talks very heavily in there of identifying what's essential in your life and identifying what's noise. And the issue is 95% of what happens out there is noise. Only 5% is truly essential to you going out there and creating the outcomes that you want. So, a lot of it is just getting clarity, getting crystal clear on exactly what it is that you want. Or if you don't know what you want, because I get that. I mean, I haven't always known what I wanted.
Yeah.
I always could identify what I didn't want, right? I think
Process
we can all
of
start
elimination.
there.
Yeah.
And then just understand that every decision that you make, every action that you take is a choice, right? So then it boils down to trade-offs, right? So like I'm having this podcast with you, I'm trading off this hour with you of our time together for something else that I could be doing, right? So like let's say I go to the copy machine and the agent that's in in my office, like let's say I'm at a big brokerage or whatever, and I have my own buildings now, so I purposely I'm away from the brokerage just because of these situations. But let's say I go to the copy machine and there's this other agent there and they want to vent to me about how shitty of an experience they're having with that another agent, right? Which I'm sure we've all experienced that a million times. And let's just say I take 20 minutes of my time to listen to them vent. Well, I've chosen now to trade off 20 minutes of time that I could be investing with my wife, investing with my kids, investing in the coaching, investing in my health, investing in, growing my business. So it's just understanding trade-offs and always having that conscious awareness of, is this a good trade-off? Is this getting me one step closer to the outcome that I want or no? I mean, it takes time. I mean, like people will I was just interviewed by Inc. Magazine on the radio show, and the dude's like, dude, like, hold on, you're just a freak, right? Like, how does this even happen? I'm like, well, it's 12 years. It's been 12 years of life.
Well, the compound, there's the compounding effect. I think there's a book, I want to read it, something about the compounding effect. But the compounding effect of everything you do, all those 20 minutes that you disregarded it's just 20 minutes, they add up. All of that adds up. So
the compound effect, that's written by Darren Hardy, who was telling about the flight story. So he's one of my mentors and coaches right now.
Okay.
So
cool.
Like for example, I'm getting ready in 2 weeks to go fly out and spend 3 days with him in San Diego, and it's a business retreat, but that 3 days, right? That's a trade-off that I'm having to take for my wife, kids, my businesses. But again, it's just making those decisions of those trade-offs, and it gets better. You're going to develop more self-discipline over time.
When you're in San Diego, you've got to say hi to Seth O'Byrne, awesome real estate agent in San Diego. You're going to have him on your show. Incredible marketing, and maybe Coca-Cola does marketing at that level. Unbelievable. But no, anyway, I wanted to make sure you got that before I forgot to tell you. But go ahead with what you're talking about with the San Diego time, trading off time.
So and I'm sorry, I go on these side tangents, but
I love it.
The reality is there's no shortage of time. I've yet to meet anybody that takes the time every single day to reflect at the end of the day and to go out there and plan their next day that complains about time management. right? If you just get up in your reactive state and you want to go out there and be a Pop-Tart inside your business,
Huge.
yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
have time management issues, right? But I take 20 minutes every single evening. I reflect on my whole entire day. I plan out
Yep.
the next day. I do that before I go to bed. I want to have a game plan from the second my eyes close to from the second my eyes open to the second my eyes closed that next day, a game plan of what must happen to make today a win. And time is never an issue. I'm never in a rush. Right? I'm not saying that I
Yeah.
don't work. I'm not one of these guys that's like, work smarter, not harder. I'm like, no, work smarter and work harder. That's just,
Yeah.
my philosophy on it. But I love to work, right? So I really don't enjoy doing many things outside of work, which that's I would do what I do right now for free, right? So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so then let me kind of retract back to running teams because this is so important, and nobody ever talks about this. Like so many agents are so reluctant to talk about splits and structures, and
This
I
is
don't know if it's a
yes,
thing of
great.
they don't really know it, or if it's a thing of they feel that's maybe their secret sauce, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no secret pill. There's no secret sauce. The only magic pill is consistency, right? So
Yeah.
so then from there, the first mistake that I made is leading people the wrong way. I was trying to push rope. You can't push rope, right? As we talked about.
Yeah.
The next thing then is split structures, right? Because if you're growing your organization, you're growing your team, eventually, hopefully the ultimate goal is to be able to step out of production, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that you can't go out there and close deals, but if your business is reliant on your own production to generate income, you really don't have a business. You have a high level paying job, right? So the
Exactly.
ultimate goal then is to create a business that supports that's self-sufficient, that's self-supporting, but also pays you a salary to cover your expenses. Then anything that you sell, just because you want to go out there and sell it, and it's extra income icing on the cake, right? Well, as you stop selling, there's a few things that happen. Your people aren't going to be necessarily as dialed in as you, so the conversion ratios are going to be a little bit less. So you got to be cognizant of that.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime, like when I was making the transition out of selling, I just removed my numbers from the whole entire equation. I would track my numbers separately from everybody inside my company's numbers, and I made every decision based off of the reality of their numbers. And then too, you got to pay them. They're not going to work for free, so you got to pay them a split. So then let's just say like on the buy side, for example, I run a 50-50 split on the buy side. And this is in, when I'm, because you got to remember, I mean, we're not just giving leads. I mean, we're giving leads, we're setting the appointments, we're, providing all the contract to close, all of that stuff. So now I'm getting half the commission that I was getting when I was actively selling. Plus I've got to pay for rent space, support staff, websites, systems, all of this stuff. So, like a huge mistake that I made when it came to split structures is I initially went 50-50 on the listing side too. And then what I realized there is by the time everything was said and done, there was no money left, right?
Because you were basically paying for everything and only taking half. Is that, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So like now today, my agents get 35% on the listing side, right? And this is in, those that we're actually giving the leads to, right? So, and then people be like, well, why would an agent ever sign up for that? All right. Well, we're generating the leads. We don't just generate the leads. We set the appointment. All they have to do is show up for the appointment, do the consultation.
Yeah.
They then hand that off to a listing coordinator. The listing coordinator, your average listing coordinator from the listing
listing
input.
coordinator part's huge.
Right? I mean, that's 5 hours per file, at least here in Arizona, of time that they save. Then it goes back on the market. So it goes on the market. The agent steps back in for contract negotiations. Then once a contract's executed, they hand it to contract to close department. And they don't touch it until, once it closes, they congratulate their sellers and they're on to the next deal. So the contract to close, our average time investment in that here in Arizona is 10 hours, right? So it saves them 15 hours per listing. Plus they don't have those time investments. Plus they're not having to invest time on lead follow-up, whatever. Because most agents, leads aren't the problem. It's their inability to convert leads to appointments that are the problem.
You are
so we solve
exactly
their
right.
problems. And then we also increase their capacity so they don't make way more money, right? And then, but this also, you also have to be cognizant of paying how you pay your support staff. Like you got to know your numbers, right? Like I know what my numbers are to a point where, okay, I know that we're at $447 hard cost into a listing from a listing input, photos, sign, lockbox, and that also includes the contract to close process. And we're at $200 roughly for the contract to close process, or
Right.
it's within pennies of that. So then I know how I can pay my people with that. I see so many people like, oh, well, I'm going to hire a transaction coordinator. I'm going to pay them a big bonus per file. Okay, that may work when you're out there selling and you're not doing a lot of deals. But you get to the point where you're doing big volume, big numbers, and the profit margin gets thinner and thinner. That becomes more difficult to do, right? So, and then here's the cool thing too. Another book that I highly recommend, and it's one of the top business books, really of all, well, not all time, but of our time, and it's called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael. And inside the E-Myth, he talks a lot about what we talked about today. I mean, I've learned so much from that book. Anyway, though, he talks about you need to have such great systems and processes inside your business that average people can deliver a great result. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily want average people, but we're not Apple computers, right? Like, we can't go out there and afford the top best talent on the planet when it comes to, support staff and whatever. So I need to bring in somebody that, now minimum wage where I'm at is $8 an hour, right? So I need to bring in somebody that I can pay 15 or 17 bucks an hour on the admin side that can get a brilliant result.
Yeah.
Right. So and that's what systems and processes allow you to do.
Set people up for success, which is back to your systems and processes is exactly what they do. So I don't want to take away from anything you want to say by diverting with another question, but when you recruit team members, because I think a lot of people, and when they're in the beginning phases and they haven't gotten the wisdom and the structure and the systems that you've got, you recruit people, they're talented, they're like, yeah, thanks, bye. And they go do their own thing. Have you created a way to really attract talent? But it's like you said, you don't want yourself, but at the same time, I think by being who you are and being so successful, you're going to attract talented people because they're going to want to learn from you to also be successful. Do you have any advice or any thoughts on attracting that talent? And I have some thoughts of my own, just in how things I've heard you say, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on when you bring in talented people, retaining them.
Yeah. So, retaining people is about creating an environment, a culture, again, a system. People leave when they're not creating success, when they're having pain inside the world, because very few human beings today are true leaders. A true leader means you take 100% responsibility of your own actions, right? So everybody's pointing the finger, it's this person's fault for my lack of success, right? So, we want to eliminate all of that off the table. So we've got actually, is this being videoed or is it just audio?
I think it's video. No, this is video.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I know you and I are on video. I just know if your audience will see that.
No, we'll do this on video, yeah.
Yeah, so like this right here that you guys are seeing right here.
But we'll tell us what it is too, because some of it's
So this is our company playbook. We call it our team Bible, right? So this is our proven system. I mean, it's a big 6-inch binder, right? So we have it here. We also created our own back-end online website where everybody can log in. And so all this is video-based and in our manual, but there's no guesswork. Nobody inside my organization can come to me and say, oh, I'm not succeeding because I didn't know what to do. Right? They were either too lazy or uncommitted, which is kind of the same thing, or they're too incompetent to handle the job. Any of those reasons, I don't want them with my company anyway. So you've got to eliminate any element of entitlement that can happen inside your company, right? And I will tell you this too, it's way easier to run a large team than a small team. So let's just say I only have 2 agents on my team. It's easy for them to kind of mastermind and team up together and be like, oh, the leads suck. Well, if I have 10 agents, right? So every sales organization, real estate's the same way, follows this. So you always have your top 20%. Yeah. You have your bottom 20%, and then you have what's called your middle 60%, which are your influencers that really make or break your company, right? Those are the ones that need the accountability, need the frequent meetings, need to be fired up, right? And those are the people that you can get from closing 1 deal a month to 3 deals a month, if you do it right. So when I have 10 people, I have two at the top, two at the bottom, and of course the six in the middle. So when those two at the bottom are coming to me like, oh, the leads suck, right? And we're a totally transparent organization where everybody can see everybody's numbers, what they're doing. And I'm like, okay, so let's just say Joe. So Joe on the team, closed $50,000. Like our top agents will make 40 or 50 grand net, right, a month after splits, after all said and done.
Huge. That's
So
awesome.
these guys
That's how you retain your talent. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
but then when they come to me with those problems, I'm like, look, here's their numbers. They're in the same marketplace. They have the same support, same system, same everything.
Yeah.
Last week, Joe made 578 dials. I pull up their tracker. You made 18, right? So you can blame. You can point the finger however you want to point the finger, right? That's up to you. That's your choice to do that. However, if you're interested in discussing the real problem here, let's talk about the real problem and help you be successful. Because if you want to bail, dude. I really don't want like based on what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
If you're here anyway,
Exactly.
right? But you're going to continue if you continue this behavior, continue this path, you're gonna continue failing, right? So if we want to talk about the real solution, let's talk about the real solution. And so.
Yeah.
That's where, again, numbers, tracking, and then I found running a bigger team is so much better. So the other thing too is I lock everybody to year contract, and there's no getting out of that year contract. I have a very high powered attorney.
Right.
That's written it, and people have tried, but even if they leave my team, even if they leave the brokerage, they have to pay me the same split for that whole entire year. Right? Because what we found is like in the first 6 months, let's just say it's a brand new agent out of school, it might really get them, it's going to take them 2 or 3 months to really learn all the systems, processes, listing presentations, and they may stumble across a couple of deals here and there, but it takes them a few months to really get this down and become a good real estate agent, right? Then from there, right, everything that we do today, we don't see the fruits from that for another 3 to 4 months. So 6 months, let's say, into it, they start producing a lot. Now all of a sudden their mind is just, oh my God, I'm paying these splits, right? So a lot of people want to bail around the 6 month mark, but then they continue that. And now they're really busy. They're closing 4, 5, 6, 10 deals a month, whatever that may be. And then they really see the power in the team and the structure at that point. With that. So we found, man, I mean, when we didn't have a contract, we lost so many people at that 6 month mark.
But if you get them through that 6 month mark, they start to appreciate what the support that the team is offering.
Once they hit that year mark, right? And then the other thing too is
that's huge. So that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is when it comes to retention, I've created a progressive split model. Right. So when I talked about the splits earlier, those are for agents that we're giving all the leads, we're doing everything for. Well, eventually, a seasoned agent that's maybe with you for 2 years and they're closing, netting several $100,000 a year, and they're like, dude, I know how to generate my own leads now. I'm getting a ton of repeat referral business now. I don't necessarily need those numbers or need the leads from you guys. I still like the systems, the training, the support, but whatever. So we have a progressive split plan on there. So if they want to go out there and self-procure their own deals, we have it where it's 70% for the first 20 deals that they do. So they get 70%, I get 30. They get everything that we offer on the team, but they don't get leads, and they don't there are leads and our ISAs. They don't get any of that, right? So at that point, though. Because you get certain costs inside your business, like my website and certain things that as you add more people, it doesn't necessarily cost you more money, right? And again, I know so even on that, if I do the math on that, my average commission is $18.68, right? So if it costs me $200 for a contract to close, right, for my support staff, my other costs are fixed. Right? I've already got the time investment into these people. So now they don't need their handheld. There's no time really involved. So then now, okay, I'm making, over $1,600 per transaction compared to nothing. And it creates that win-win. So then after those 20 deals, then it will go to an 80-20 with a max $1,500 dollar per commission split. So again, even there, I'm making at least, even if it's a listing, I'm still making $1,000 net per closing. And these are people that I mean, I have teammates, some of my top agents I haven't talked to in over a year, right? They're never in the office. They don't show up to meetings. They don't need to. They just want the systems, but then we create it in a way where they can't duplicate it on their own. Right now maybe if you just boil it down to just numbers financially, yeah, they could probably duplicate it, but at that point, you're gonna take on the financial risk. You gotta, you're your own PR, your HR person,
take the time.
all of these things,
Yeah.
and we make where their lives just are so easy and they don't have that pain, that they just can continue going. So yeah, my retention used to be very bad. Now it's extremely good. I mean, per 10
you get
agents,
them through that 6 month mark.
yeah, between 10 agents that we hire, we lose one. Right? So so retention is insane at this point.
That's awesome. And I think so. The key is, first of all, you've got to keep them. And I'll tell you. Well, I have a question. So when you usually lose your team members, are you losing them? I would think the new agents would be the ones you would lose, because the agents who have been agents and have been on their own that come to a team appreciate the support. But if they're given to you brand new, I think, was that where you were losing more agents, or do you think it was just did you find any pattern like that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, when I say this, I don't want anybody to think that they should only target a certain type of agent.
Right.
Like I don't know anybody on this planet that has it down to a science of, how to recruit the perfect person going into it, right? Because everybody's a badass on interview. I've had so many people where I'm like, oh man, I think this is a bad hire, and they shock the hell out of me and they become a rock star. I've had so many people where I'm like, oh, this is it. This person's going to be amazing, and they're a massive disappointment. So with this being said, I mean, we recruit a lot of new agents. We recruit seasoned agents. But if we broke it down onto averages, that agent that's been seasoned, but it's just kind of, I love agents, single agents that have been just kind of stuck at that 3 million mark for years. Because I can take that person and I can go out there and triple their income in 12 months, right? And keep them now sustainable because they're a great realtor, right? They've lasted. They just need to have the systems and the support behind them.
All right, everybody. Today, welcome to the Jerry Metcalf podcast, where our top real estate agents tell how they do it all. Today, we have Richard Silver in Toronto, Canada. He's a powerful real estate agent in Canada, got a huge, powerful team. He really works as a team, works with his agents as a team, which has inspired me and motivated me. And even more so, he is working in a big way internationally, especially with the Asian markets. We're going to talk about how he became successful and tap into some of the specifics of his success. All that said, Richard, please do introduce yourself and fill in the gaps where I left out on that.
Oh my God, there's so many gaps. How long?
Exactly, which is great.
Hours?
Yeah, it makes it fun.
So I've been licensed for 37 years, which is I'm much longer than you've been alive, of course.
We'll pretend that's true. Yeah, I like that.
And so I've always been in the top 1% of the Toronto Real Estate Board, which has 45,000 members. So we have a very large board here. At about 5 years ago, I was president of the Toronto Real Estate Board. So I did a lot of organized real estate for NAR and for CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association, and the Toronto Real Estate Board. And I think about 10 years ago, I sort of looked around at what was happening in the city and realized that we were much more of a gateway city for international buyers. Canada, although some people consider us pretty boring, the reality is we have healthcare. We don't have a huge crime incidence in Canada. We, it's pretty settled. It's pretty quiet, and we have a lot of people who want to invest here. So we have about, within the Toronto area, which is probably a population in total of about 6 million, we have 100,000 immigrants per year. So not necessarily from just other countries, but other parts of Canada that may be going through a downturn. And so they move to Toronto. They come to Toronto for business because this area of Ontario is the engine of Canada, really. We do a lot of there's a lot of things that happen in we call it Southwestern Ontario.
You spend a lot of time doing this business development and doing a lot of traveling, whether it's buyers and a lot of buyers relocating. For example, we know one another from the travel that we do. And you're traveling to China, you're traveling, all over China and all of these other countries and doing these presentations about Toronto. So how have you structured your business and your team to afford you the ability to do that? Or how does that work so that you're both really doing some powerful business development, but also have everything on the ground at home to deliver that service when you generate these clients?
Yeah, well, the business has changed a lot in that now we are a team, whereas I used to be, a single agent, and maybe I had an assistant, and maybe I had another agent who would help me with extra buyers. But about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to move towards a team, not a partnership, but a team. And I took the bold step of not naming it after me.
Right.
I wanted it to be known as Torontoism, because I wanted, when I decided to retire, or if I decide to retire, that it could continue on and could exist without me, or without me having, being involved in the day-to-day. I see a lot of people who develop teams, and it's all based on their own personality. And it's great when you're young, but I've been doing this for 37 years. I'll probably continue another 4 or 5 years, and then I'll sort of drift into, I'll just be doing the visiting of the other locations and talking about Toronto and just, sending them referrals. So what I've done is I've structured the team so that I no longer list anything on my own. I list it with a team member. I never work with a buyer on my own. I'm always working as a team with them. And there's somebody on my team who's sort of like a junior leader. He's working his way to take on the whole project when I decide to drift into the sunset. But then, we focused on creating diversity within our team and making sure that we represented a lot of different cultures. The reality is we not only have the different cultures. We have somebody we have probably 10 languages on our team. So we have somebody who speaks Mandarin, we have somebody who speaks Cantonese, we have Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, English, French, Ukrainian, Portuguese, and we're like, Toronto.
10 languages. How many team members?
10. There's only 7 of us.
I was going to say, I didn't think you had 10. So you've got a few of your team members speaking several languages.
Yes. And also, we're probably, our goal is maybe to move to 10, but not 10 realtors. We'll probably stay at about 8 realtors, and the other 2 will be assistants, licensed assistants maybe, or assistants. But basically we use, it's all about systems. So we use, our CRM is something called RealVolve.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know about it.
I've heard about it, but yeah.
It's a very, it's fairly new. It's a great system. We're learning more and more about it each day, and it's changing each day as well.
And what do you like about it? I've talked to so many agents. I interview agents a lot for the podcast. A lot of agents with big teams are using Google Docs. And I have actually, because of that, started using Google Docs because I can at least control it until I find something else.
Right.
What about RealVolve? Because I remember you had said in another conversation that RealVolve is a great CRM for teams. What is it that makes it great for teams? Or what is it that makes it a great CRM?
Basically, you have to spend some time setting it up. But what we have is workflows with RealVolve. So, when I go out to see a client or I get the phone call, I enter them into the system, and on day 1, it sends them an introductory email. And then on day 2, it reminds me, do I want to follow up and double check the time that I'm going to see them at the house? And then it sends them an email that I'm coming, and here is information about the presentation, or here's the forms that you're going to have to sign in plain language. Or it basically just is a drip campaign of all the things they know about until they get to the next stage, which is, thank you for signing the listing, and we move into that stage. And then thank you for signing the offer, and here's what you need to know about from now while the sale is pending before closing. So it basically has workflows developed for every single part of the transaction.
That's great.
And yeah, it notifies you as the agent or you as the responsible party for it, and it gives you a list when you get up every morning and says, okay, today you're going to do this, today you're going to do that. Know that this email went out to the clients. Do you want to follow up with it? Do you want to send them a card? All of those things, and it basically automates and puts systems into your day to day.
So what about? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say now. It's only going to be as good as we are at using it. And so we're still getting up. We're just finishing off our workflows. To me, it looks brilliant, but, there's a long distance between, the look of it and getting everybody on it.
The discipline as real estate agents, we like to do what's right in front of us right now, but the discipline of getting up and implementing those.
Exactly. But you know what? In my history, looking back on people who have come to the market, left the market, come to the market, left the market, there were some people who were absolutely wonderful, but they had no systems. They had no sort of, okay, this is what you do today, this is what you're going to do tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So, they would have a couple of good sales and then they would disappear for 3 days. In the meantime, everything else fell to the side. So being consistent, as I said, is really important. And this will help the consistency.
It reminds me of the book, The Compound Effect, and I'm forgetting the author's name right now, but the compound effect of the little things. I say this, I'm speaking from my personal faults, is it's so easy to just want to do what's going to pay off right now, and all those little things can wait because I'll just get to those later, and those things add up, and the compound effect of them, of the success as a result or the lack of it as a result of not, and I can speak because I'm, every day I'm working on that. I like to do this big stuff all the time, but it's those little things, which makes it sound like that's a great CRM I should look into. So
I think once you get it up and running, and I can certainly share with you some of our workflows, and once you get those, and you tailor them to your team. Okay. You tailor them so that automatically an email goes out. It has information. It's about your team, whatever. And it's how your team deals with stuff. And we sat down, we decided, okay, from the day we get the phone call, what is it that we do? And
you did it with your team. You came up with it together. That's smart.
We started on the workflows. Everybody had input. Now, as I said, the next step is to see how we use it. But, the great thing about RealVolve is they have tons and tons of back-end information and help desk and videos, and they've done a wonderful job in educating the agents.
Okay. I'm going to take, because a lot of the CRMs I find aren't team-friendly. It's everybody will have their own version, and you might even have a team, but you log in and we tried one, and I would take a client and then I'll assign someone to help me with the client and then they can't see unless they log into mine and I log into theirs, and we don't want to share because we have different stuff. We just want to be able to see what's going on. It sounds like RealVolve, you get a big picture of the team activity and you can tap into your own activity as well.
Exactly. And you can also see what the funnel is. In other words, if we take all these listings and we sell all these listings today, whoa. That's
motivational. Look at all the potential. I remember I called it my pipeline. I started building my pipelines on, I'd assign a number to every lead, and this is the chance they'll close, and this is the amount that it will be, and this is the income as a result. And I can, I'd think, I'm not doing that great. And I'd look at the pipeline and be like, gosh, all I've got to do is pick up the phone and help people. And the next thing I know, it's going to be great. It's not that, it's just those small, little, repetitive, consistent activities.
Yeah. I think that's the most amazing thing about real estate is, if you set your mind to doing all of those things, then it's really not a hard business. Mm-hmm. However, most agents don't do that. I think about 80% of the people I know do not do anything like that. And then you've always got that, 80-20 rule, that the 20% that do, even if they don't necessarily do it through a system like RealVolve, their minds work that way. Mm-hmm. It's the mind that says, okay, I get up in the morning, I know I have to do A, B, C, D, E. And I'm not going to, have a coffee or relax until I've got those things finished. I've got to get them through.
Well, I think you're right. I remember being new in the business, and I've been fortunate in being a successful real estate agent for 14 years now. And since day one, it doesn't feel like it when you're brand new, but in hindsight, I did well quickly. But I can remember having colleagues, once you get in the business, you're too busy to notice. But I remember having colleagues that were the same number of months in the business as me. And they were like, "You're busy." I would call them up. "Oh, I'm just hanging out. I don't have anything going on right now." And I was never not busy and everything. Like, how can you not be busy in this business? If you don't have any business, then you should be even busier getting it, especially if you're new. Like, there's never nothing. There's not a way to be a real estate agent and not be slammed. It's just not possible, because you're either doing deals or generating deals, or really, ideally, you're doing both all the time.
Yeah.
So, but it's back to your point.
And it's a matter of just being motivated and keeping that ball rolling, putting your head down, especially for a new agent. A lot of people say, "Well, how did you achieve success?" I said, for the first 2 years, I just put my head down. I went and saw everything that I could, all of the open houses, all of the agents' open houses. I met as many people as I could. Mm-hmm. I sat open houses every weekend, and I just, I worked myself crazy, but just putting my head down and continuing to work. I didn't go in and out, and I tried not to be uneven in my workflow. I tried to be very even and very dedicated. Sadly, there's a cost to your private life, your personal life, and but
it creates that consistent habit of every day. It's almost like, the challenge for me is sometimes you can't cut it off. It gets a little hard to cut it off, but it sure does make for a consistent workflow, like you said.
Yeah. And then what you do is you make sure that, you have proper family time that you keep within that workflow.
Well, that's the key. That is part of your habit of what you do every day. Yeah. Exactly.
My partner and I have dinner, I think, 6 nights out of 7. We, unless I'm traveling or something, there's very seldom a time when I'll just go and say, I got to work. I'm not going to be able to meet you or whatever.
Exactly. It's funny you say that, because I'm big on every day. I work all day, but at night, everybody kind of knows that if there's something at night, there's a slim chance you're going to get Jerry, because that's Jerry's family time. Every night I go home to family.
And people, I think, once you establish that, they respect it.
Everybody, this is the Jerry Metcalf podcast. Today, I am so excited because we have the famous Seth O'Byrne in San Diego. He is a top real estate agent in San Diego and top team in his office at Pacific Sotheby's International Realty. Seth, tell us about yourself, and tell us about yourself as a real estate agent, and a little about your personal life.
Yeah, so I got into real estate back in 2003. I actually originally moved down to San Diego in 2000 to go to the University of San Diego, and got an internship in both a commercial and a residential brokerage. One was over the weekends working for Remax here in La Jolla on the ocean front. La Jolla's are the San Diego's version of Beverly Hills. It's a very, very expensive part of San Diego. I was literally just making copies and making coffees for people Saturdays and Sundays. And then during the week, I worked for a very large apartment brokerage locally, and that's called ACI Commercial. And at ACI Commercial, I was doing rent rolls and getting to know these apartment buildings. I was even cold calling on apartment building owners, trying to get them to sell their apartments through the brokers that I worked for. So I had 2 very, very different experiences. One was working in the Shangri-La office, atop a cliff over the ocean with Bentleys parked out front, getting this very glamorous experience of residential real estate. And then the other was, basically being locked into a small closet with my hand virtually duct taped to the phone, just dialing for dollars, trying to cold call people during the week. And, those 2 experiences were pretty powerful for me, because I always thought I was going to be a commercial real estate broker. But I realized there was so much fun and so much creativity and admittedly some glamour in real estate, especially coastal real estate. And so from 2003 to about 2005 was our growth stage. And from 2005 on, I left the team that I was on, which I'd been a part of for about 24 months, which was the highest producing team for Remax in San Diego. And they did fabulous production, about a 17-person team. And then went off on my own, hired my first assistant. I borrowed money from my mom to pay for my assistant's first week's salary. And then started closing transactions, and the revenue started, basically keeping up with the expenses. And graduated college 2004, 2005. Sold several homes before I had actually graduated. So it was really, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. The moment I got into residential, I had actually at that point had 3 or 4 separate different internships. And so I knew that residential was where I wanted to go. And I knew that, La Jolla, the coastline, the ocean, that kind of vacation second home lifestyle was really where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Well, listening to you talk about it, it's clear that you knew exactly what you wanted to do. And that and you came in knowing what you wanted to do, and you came in working hard. How did you know that real estate was the career for you? Obviously you thought it was commercial, and luckily you made the right decision and got into residential. Yeah. But how did you know it was real estate?
Yeah, I realized very quickly that commercial real estate, especially in the early 2000s when I got involved, was a business of making, real estate investment trusts and real estate funds richer, basically making very wealthy people even wealthier. Mm-hmm. And much in the same way that residential real estate agents can come from nothing and become something fairly incredible, I realized that residential real estate was really at the ground level. It was truly what our, pursuit of happiness, what our Declaration of Independence, what our country was founded on was the idea that someone could be an immigrant, they could be a man or a woman, they could come from, low education in the roughest parts of the city. And there are still industries in this world, and I think residential real estate is one of them, where you can really make something out of yourself, and do it solely from the sweat of your brow. That you could overcome all these traditional barriers to success just by working hard. And what I realized is both me as a real estate agent and my clients buying residential real estate and growing their portfolios were really part of that same incredible fabric of residential real estate really being, it's the people's economy. And something about that really made me feel good. I felt like I was part of something I could be really proud of.
Well, you're a hard worker and you're an incredibly creative person. Anybody that looks at you online can see that the marketing that you do is just outstanding. I mean, it outshines anything I've ever seen, quite frankly. So on that note, when you got into real estate, you knew this is what you wanted to do. You knew it was your career. What, as you got into it, what were the biggest challenges getting into the business, and how did you overcome those to really get your foot in and go from, working every day of the week in a closet and serving, making coffee or whatever you had to do to, obviously it was a 10-year process, which is actually pretty fast to be where you are now. But what was that transition for you, and what's the story you can tell us about that?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I think too, as you lose a little bit of hair on top of your head, get a little bit older, you start thinking about, what got you here, whether it's, the bad spills that made your back bad, or it's the money in your pocket and how did you get it, so I've done a lot of reflection, especially this year, which has been an absolute banner year for us on top of another banner year. And those are great things. And I really feel very proud of that. And I think about this question all the time. I think one of the biggest hurdles I had was, and it could be one of two things. It could either be truly my age that held me back, or my perception of my age holding me back. And my age was always my issue. And so, I got into the residential industry really around the age 20, 21. And, I very quickly started selling expensive real estate. I have always been heavily involved in first-time home buyers, second-time home buyers, working a lot here in San Diego, being a military town with veterans. But my very first listing was a $2 million oceanfront house And that was my first listing at the age
That's a great start. Yeah.
21. Yeah. Yeah. And it was intimidating. And I think, faking it till I made it was a huge part of what I did. And I don't think I've ever stopped doing that. I think one of the things that our company, our brand, and our marketing message, which I'm really the author of most of the marketing messages, whether it's through social media or traditional outlets, our marketing message, we're always kind of trying to look bigger than the bear in the forest. You know what I mean? We're standing up on our hind legs, and we're always trying to accentuate the things that are great about our company. But I think part of that comes from the desire to grow, the desire to share the things that we're really proud that we've been able to accomplish. But I think, quite honestly, it's probably a chip on my shoulder that I got at the ripe age of 20, having to walk into rooms with people who are far more successful than me, far older than me, far more sophisticated than me, and have to prove myself in a very short period of time. Now I feel much more comfortable, even with much more sophisticated people and much more successful people. But at the same time, I think learning how to find commonalities between, if you're here, you perceive you're here, and the client or the developer or whoever it is you perceive up here. I think that that lesson in socializing, especially moving up the ladder, is it's very difficult to teach that, and I think it really has to be learned. And that's something that I learned that absolutely opened a lot of doors for me.
You remind me of being a new agent and going in. I remember I got in doing a lot of land deals because I was young and homeless, and not really homeless, but living with my grandmother. And you walk into these meetings and you've got people in the room that have been developing for years, and they're talking about zoning, and I'm just learning, and you just are really quiet. Yeah. And the trick to that is people assume you're a lot smarter than you are, or they tended to then, and you listen and you just learn, and you fake it till you make it a little bit, and not in a way without integrity, but just in a way of staying out of your own way.
Yes.
Stay out of your own way so that you can be successful.
Absolutely, and I think you bring up a very important nuance, because you can never truly make it in real estate if you're faking something important, right? If you're lying about a material fact on a property, if you're lying about your experience, that's a very different thing. I think the faking it is acting the part. And,
exactly.
If you've got $100 in your bank account, go buy a $95 dinner jacket and show up to a lot of networking events. It's really leveraging all your current resources, however limited they are, and producing your very best self. And I think that's really the more, forgiving way of saying faking it till you make it.
Exactly.
I really hand it to realtors for being able to do it. There's not a lot of industries that force someone to go from 0 to 60 so quickly. This industry, you either do that or unfortunately your first year will be your last.
Yeah, and I'd love to know what you think is the difference. Now that you've got a team, and I want to talk a little bit about that, because you've got a team and you watch real estate agents be successful. You've got people going from 0 to 60 quickly. In a year, or they go from making no money to 6 figures. And then you get real estate agents that are in the business for 10 years and they kind of do, they don't even quite break into 6 figures. And we're in Atlanta, that's still an okay income because the cost of living is pretty good here. But what do you think, as you interview people to be on your team, what do you think the difference is between those agents that make it and don't make it?
Well, I think there's an interesting intersection between someone who socializes well, just innately. That there's people who are just born to socialize, and those people can be extremely successful. But if you're the funniest one in the room, the best looking person in the room, some of these magnetic qualities can actually, I think, in my experience, and I've hired probably 36 brokers in the last, say 12 to 14 years, depending upon where you really put our start date. I've seen some of the people with the most magnetic qualities, that the fact that everything came so easy to them actually be an anchor that holds them down. because they sort of expect that a lot of their success in life has come without hard work. But on the other token, if you don't have some of those innate qualities and you work hard, you can always make it. But it will definitely, that's the person where, they have to go to year 5, year 6, year 7. Maybe they have a characteristic, that holds them back in a little, some way, maybe what some might call a character flaw. I think hard work, you're always going to be successful, but it could take you longer. But I think sometimes you do find that rare quality where, where someone's magnetic, but it doesn't go to their head, or they're very good with people, but they don't use that as a way to rest like a crutch. They use that as a way to grow and expand. And I think if you can have that kind of je ne sais quoi and have an amazing work ethic, that's typically where the two really meet. I meet a lot of people that have that kind of Q factor. They're beautiful, they're funny, they're magnetic. You just want to be around them. But their work ethic doesn't match. And I think the hardest thing is for someone who socially has always been at the top of the totem pole, is thrown into an industry like residential real estate, where what has made them successful will open doors, but once the doors are open, that's when the meeting starts. And I think a lot of people in residential real estate forget the second part, which is you're still going to hear a lot of no's. And I've hired prom queens and homecoming kings and quarterbacks and people who all through high school and college were always the man or the woman. And you think just because they have such social power, they'll be able to get into a social industry and do well. But rejection is very difficult to hear for some of these people. And I think that's where the first year, a lot of people do get weeded out.
It's the ability to overcome challenges. And I think the ability to overcome challenges in rejection is your ability to do the same once you win the business, and the ability to deliver and keep going. Because it's like we say all the time, you get in this business, a lot of people get in this business because they know people and they think if they just had a license, all their friends would list their house for them. Yeah, exactly.
Good luck. They'll sell 2 homes.
And then you get in the business and realize everybody has a license.
Yeah.
So yeah, that it's a little bit more than that. What in your career, I'm thinking about 2 questions at once. What success are you, or what are you most proud of? What's a success that you're really most excited about and most proud of in the course of your career that you've accomplished?
I think one of the things that being a team leader, I'm really excited that I've been able to take, the people on my team and allow both financial and lifestyle success for them. It sounds so strange to say it in this way, and I hope it doesn't come off like ego driven, but you almost feel like a parent to the people that work with you and on your team as an employer, as a boss, as a team leader, I call myself a cheerleader to both salespeople and support staff. You do have a maternal or fraternal role. And so much, I think like a mother or father would be so excited to see someone who they trained on something, their kid to ride a bike, their daughter to, I don't know, dance, whatever these things are. I think that fraternal instinct that gets engaged when you run a team, and I certainly feel it every day. When I see one of my agents knock it out of the park, or sell the biggest home they've ever sold, or have a banner year, or one of my employees have an amazing aha moment, you feel a sense of pride that's a lot deeper, and I think the significance lasts a lot longer than even your own successes. Because for me, once I have a success, I brag about it on social media. I try to get some leverage out of sell more houses, and then I forget, and it's on to the next. But the memories I have of my agent's success and my staff members' success, those make me happy in on my grayest days. And that happiness, much like a parent, I think is longer lasting. That's one thing I'm very proud of, for sure.